Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Sunday morning hybrid service of Summit Unitarian Universalist Fellowship. I was thinking this morning about hybrids and how hybrids are usually stronger than the original elements. And I was thinking how wonderful it is that we can have people at home in Zoom land where you can not have to drive, you can stay in your jammies and drink with your tea and coffee. And yet you can also be here in the sanctuary. And I'm loving being here because I don't have to share the screen with my little cat who wants to know who's talking. So she's probably at home on Zoom right now. But we are here together, and it's so lovely to see everybody here. Thank you for being with us today. My name is Katie Boskoff, and I'm the service associate today. I need to let you know we are recording today's service, as you just heard, but we will turn it off before the community gathering. And just a brief reminder, if you haven't turned off your cell phones or anything else that might make noise, please do so at this time. And now to let us start to calm our minds and hearts and get in the spirit of worship, let's listen to our prelude. Good morning, Karen.
Good morning. I'm going to play maybe a little bit rousing. This little light of mine, feel free to clap or hum along. Its music is a tribute to Harry Dixon Lewis, and it's arranged by Mark Hayes.
Thank you, Karen. That's a good rousing start to the morning. Welcome again to the Sunday morning worship service of Summit UU Fellowship. We are a liberal religious community bound together by shared principles drawn from world religions, humanist teachings, nature and science, philosophy, and personal practices. We are a religion of love and inclusion. We aspire to the principles and purposes that are listed in the order of service. The mission of Summit is to commit ourselves to building a more compassionate, just, and sustainable world. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism or to Summit and would like to know more about us, we invite you to go to our website, summituuf.org, click on the visitors button, fill out our online connection card, and someone will follow up with you. We want to acknowledge that our fellowship resides on unceded Kumeyaay land, and that for more than 10,000 years this land has been and continues to be home to the Kumeyaay people. We recognize the violent history of colonization in California and honor the legacy of the continuing presence of the Kimi-ai Nation. And now we will enjoy our chalice lighting, and I've asked Jack Shu to light our chalice while I share with you the words of Paul Sprecher. We light this chalice in memory of the courage of those who have struggled for freedom, the persistence of those who've struggled for justice, and the love of those who've built beloved communities to carry on the light of hope. And now, the powers that be have said that we can sing with our masks on. So I would invite you to join with as we enjoy our UU hymn. And those of you at home in Zoom land, you can sing as loud as you want, but stay muted. So we will now enjoy our UU hymn.
Bajo el gran sol, surja esperanza, fe, amor, verdad y belleza cantando de cada tierra, cada voz.
From all who dwell below the skies, let faith and hope with love arise. Let beauty, truth, and good be sung through every land by every tongue.
Now please join with me as we say the words to our UU aspiration. May love be the spirit of this fellowship. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration. And now we welcome Mary in the Religious Exploration Room. She's going to talk about speaking trees that speak, or you're going to speak?
I'm going to speak for the trees
Okay.
today. Good morning. Can you hear me? All right, good. There's something on my screen. There we go. I have a lovely book here, the Lorax. Well, I won't be reading the book today because of copyright issues. This was one of my favorite. Can we shut that door? Get a little feedback. This was one of my favorite books as a child. Have you read this book, Simon?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and it was published by Theodore Geisel, wrote the book, and it was published in 1971. Welcome, come on in, grab a puppet. We are live on camera. It was published the year after the first Earth Day holiday, which was in 1970. And Friday was Earth Day. Did anybody celebrate anything for Earth Day on Friday? Yeah, you know it was Earth Day? We have a lot of puppets back here in RE today. So the Lorax, when it was written, it was inspired by a tree, a Monterey cypress tree in La Jolla, because Theodore Geisel lived in San Diego County. And unfortunately, that tree died of unknown causes in the early 90s. But that was, so the truffula tree that inspired the story was here. If you haven't read the story before, it basically is a story of a beautiful grove of trees that is the truffula trees, and they get cut down by somebody named the Onceler, who figures out that you can make these wonderful things called thneeds with the truffula trees. And the thneed becomes very popular, and there's so many consumers wanting to buy it. They cut down all the trees to make it, and then there's no more trees and no more thneeds. And so it's kind of a cautionary tale about what happens when we don't pay attention to the rotten world around us. So there was another real life scientist, naturalist named Rachel Carson, who 60 years ago noticed that birds were dying. And she wrote this book called The Silent Spring. And it was all about a chemical called DDT that was being used to kill bugs in growing food so we could grow more food. We're going to kill the bugs so more food can grow. And people really didn't understand the connection between the bugs and the birds and the water and the ground and the trees and everything. And she noticed that the birds were dying. And it was because this chemical was messing with the ecosystem, and their eggs weren't able to hold the babies, and they were crushing before they could even become baby birds. And that was a big warning to people to really recognize how we're all connected to nature. Everything is connected. And it's one of our our 8 principles. The 7th principle is our connection to the earth. And what happened when she found this out was a very different time. And people paid attention, and they started making changes, and they changed the laws to make that chemical not be able to be used so that we could have birds, so we could hear birds in the morning, wouldn't have a silent spring. And the very first Earth Day in 1970, over 20 million Americans participated in what was called a teach-in. A teach-in, so we could learn about the earth and how to take care of it, because it wasn't something we'd really been focused on up to that point. And that was a long, long time ago, and we're still having to have these conversations in focus. So today we're here. I have my little owl. Simon has an owl. We have a couple bunnies over here. They're kind of off screen. And we are speaking for the trees today and saying, you know, we need the trees. The trees breathe in our carbon dioxide that we breathe out, and they make oxygen for us. And even though we might need to make needs, we don't really need a need, do we? We need the trees more because they make us oxygen. So today we're speaking for the trees, and each voice that speaks for the trees makes a difference. We make a difference by taking care of the earth, by not using heavy duty chemicals, by knowing that there's a whole cycle out there that we might not witness, but it's there, and we need to care about it and care for it. And so that is my story for you today. And after we finish our story, we're going to go outside and we're going to dig in the dirt, and we're going to plant some seeds and some seedlings, and we're going to make fairy gardens. So I hope you'll come by and see what the kids are doing after the service. So thank you for listening today.
Bye-bye, kids. Have a good time. Okay, we have a few announcements this morning. First of all, our president, Eleanor Weed, will update us on the pledge drive.
Good morning. I am delighted to report that we are 2/3 of the way to our goal for our pledge drive. We have come to this far thanks to the generosity of 61 households. We still have the final third to go to reach our goal. We normally have between 110 and 130 households pledge, which is from 50 to 70 more households. So it is still possible to reach our goal. Every donation, whether it's $100 a month or $100 a week, helps a lot. Your donations help to pay for our incredible staff, the ministries of this fellowship, and the upkeep of our facilities. Remember, these pledges don't go into effect until July 1st. If at all possible, we would like pledges turned in by Mother's Day, May 8th, so that the Finance Committee and Board can start working on next year's budget, which the congregation will approve at our June congregational meeting. If you have not yet turned in your pledge form, either paper versions or online versions are available and can be found on our website. The link is in the virtual order of service that all of you received. There are also paper versions of the pledge form in the greeting room for those of you who are here. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And again, thank you so much.
And now Jim Weed, the other half of the Weed family, has an announcement about the meeting today.
If you are new to Summit, the Welcoming and Membership Committee invites you to join us today at Summit from 12:30 to 2 p.m. This will be our first newcomers orientation in person since COVID began. You will have an opportunity to meet our minister, Reverend Everett Howe, and learn about our UU history. One of our founding members, Pat Summers, and it's good to see you today, Pat, will share Summit's history. Our president, Eleanor Weed, will explain how we as a fellowship are organized and talk about the role of RE in the fellowship. And we will discuss what it means to be a member of Summit and how you can join. However, you will not be pressured to become a member. We want you to join only when you are ready. Childcare for the orientation will also be provided, so we look forward to seeing you there.
Okay, one last time announcement. This is the fourth Sunday in April, and it's our tradition to have an update from the Social Justice and Action Committee. So today we are welcoming Rin Corbet, Chair of the committee, to tell us what's going on.
Thank you, Katie. Good morning, everyone. It's very nice to be back here in the sanctuary. This is so fun, looking at it, all of you. Really neat. First, a report from the Social Justice and Action Committee, and then a request. So we've been informed that the San Diego Interfaith Shelter Network is holding discussions and planning for next year's homeless shelter efforts. The committee is monitoring this and has invited their representative, Abby Shrestha, to speak at a Summit SJIA service in September. Also, we're planning to attend and support the La Mesa Juneteenth and Friends 2022 celebration at MacArthur Park in La Mesa on Sunday, June 19th. Juneteenth is, of course, the celebration commemorating African American freedom and is now a federal holiday. From its Galveston, Texas origin in 1865, it emphasized education and achievement of African Americans. It's a day, a week, in some areas a month, marked with celebrations, guest speakers, picnics, family gatherings. It's a celebration, and rightly deserved. Also, the San Diego LGBTQ Pride, First UU, and its Rainbow Action Group have reserved a trolley and a spot in the Pride Parade on July 16th in Hillcrest, and we want to be involved. Closer to home, and sadly, last Saturday at an apartment complex in Lakeside, a group of people shouting racial slurs approached a young black girl and her family. 2 white juveniles were arrested in the subsequent attack that hospitalized the girl with stabbing wounds. Several members of our Social Justice and Action Committee later attended a town hall convened by the San Diego Sheriff's Department. The sheriff's stated purpose was, laudably, to provide transparency and inform the community what their response had been to this apparent hate crime. Unfortunately, and as expected, the sheriffs are too little and too late. We've seen racist attacks before in Lakeside and Santee. What is needed, and what we attempted to communicate to the department that night and other times, is a radical transformation from white supremacy to equity, dismantling institutional and systemic racism. The deputies there that night said, "Okay, sure, gotcha." Law enforcement will not change. Indeed, it cannot change without our help. We cannot expect them to solve this problem by themselves. To be fair, they agreed to come back soon for another meeting, and so on we go. What can we do? How can Summit live into its 8th principle and accountably dismantle racism in ourselves and our institutions? We are reaching out to other communities and organizations in our area, Among them, the Baha'i community in East County, which holds a monthly meeting on racial amity. Lakeside Community Collaborative, East County BIPOC, a group of Black women organizing for equity. And the list goes on. There are so many groups, organizations, people interested in the same efforts, and we can reach out to them and form a larger group. We are widening our circle externally. Internally, among UUs, the 8th Principal Collaboration Group of San Diego, which includes members from Chalice, Palomar, First UU, San Diego, and Summit, invites you to join us in beginning a study of widening the circle of concern. The UUA's report, recommendation, and study guide. The first 3 sessions of our group will meet virtually this spring at 10 a.m. on Saturday mornings. April 30th, that's next Saturday, May 21st, and June 11th. We have found these discussions to be enriching and fulfilling work and hope to share that joy among our congregations. This work is an affirming way to celebrate the adoption and implementation of the 8th principle, or for those churches still pending, to work towards its adoption. These sessions will be informal and open to all San Diego UUs. Each month we'll have a chapter from the guide to read before our discussion. We hope you'll return each month, but joining for a topic that particularly interests you would work as well. The book is available for free online, including an audio format, and is also available for purchase as a printed book or Kindle book. To register, please find the link in the chat. And also, you can always contact me, reach out to me after the service or online at rencorbet@gmail.com. Also, this information is presented, available in our e-news and the Scene at Summit. This is our request that you please consider making time for this important work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ren. It's my pleasure to announce to you today that, again, the powers that be have decided that it's okay to have coffee today. So there will be coffee service and some packaged snacks outside in the parking lot area in that little tent out there afterwards. So that's a new development today. And I'm also pleased to announce that we have our special guest speaker today, a member of Summit, Jack Shu. Many of you know Jack from the many, many years been here. Jack has been a member since 1989, before I was born. And Jack has worked on various committees over the last 30 years. His primary interests were in social action, legislative ministry, and raising UU voices on justice issues. Jack retired in 2005 after a 29-year career with the California Department of Parks and Recreation, mostly as a park superintendent. He also served 25 years as the president of the Cleveland National Forest Foundation, known for trying to save our local wilderness through better city building and transportation. In 2020, Jack decided to run for public office and was elected for a 4-year term to the Mesa City Council. He represents La Mesa on the Metropolitan Transit System Board, the 2nd District on the Air Pollution Control District, and as an alternate on the SANDAG Board. He has influenced local government on matters like climate emergency, transportation planning, police reform, local air pollution, affordable housing availability, promoting art and culture, and identifying outcome measures for government. Whew. And did I hear that you're also vice mayor? Vice mayor too, okay. So we are so glad that you've all chosen to join us this morning for a time of connection and reflection, both in the sanctuary and at home on Zoom. I invite you to stay after the service for our community gathering, where we will have a chance to give feedback to the speaker or share a joy or concern with a larger group. This morning, our first reading, somewhere in here. Got too many pieces of paper up here. Okay. The first reading is from the UUA website on Side with Love. Unitarian Universalists affirm unconditional universal love as a foundation and grounding for our actions in the world. We strive to be of service to our communities and advocate for change on local, state, national, and international levels. Through our Side with Love campaign, formerly Standing on the Side of Love, we amplify the voices of the oppressed through online media. We show up in partnership at justice events across the country. We lobby national leaders on immigration reform, racial justice, equality for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people, religious freedom, and more. And above all, we work to make love real in the world. Over 80% of Unitarian Universalist congregations and many more individual UUs and others who care about justice have become a part of Side with Love. Mahatma Gandhi did it, Mother Teresa did it, Martin Luther King Jr. did it. We are a fellowship supported entirely by the voluntary generosity of our members and friends, and we greatly appreciate our faithful pledgers who continue to keep up their monthly contributions. If you are moved to make a contribution today, we encourage you to do so. It's now easier than ever to contribute to our virtual plate today. The link can be found in the chat box and will take you directly to the donation location. And for those in the sanctuary, the ushers will be happy to accept your donations as they pass the baskets. And now we will gratefully accept your generous donations during the musical interlude.
Good morning. I will play the Etude number 3, Opus 10 number 3 in E major by Chopin. And Chopin was a refugee all of his life. He left Poland and he wanted to go back, but he passed away, and he had his sister bring his heart back to Poland, and it's in a church in Poland, and I was there in Warsaw and saw the church. But so there's always a longing in Chopin's music for his homeland. And this is for all the refugees that that are experiencing that kind of longing.
Thank you, Karen. That was beautiful. Our second reading today is by Sarah Gibb Millspaugh, Religion at its Best. Religion is as much about faith in humanity as it is about faith in deity. And many of us will find that over and over our faith in humanity gets tested. We are immersed in a culture that's deeply corrupted by selfishness, greed, and oppression-born privilege and fear. It's all too easy for us to justify the dehumanization, ostracization, suffering, and death of others. It's all too easy for us to devalue some humans' lives and feel somehow like we're still good, upstanding, moral people. Religion at its best asks us to do better than this, to rise above the selfishness and status seeking, the othering and xenophobia that comes so easily to us. Religion at its best, and our Unitarian Universalist faith, calls us to honor that which is sacred in each person, even those we might hate, even those who we find disgusting. It impels us to accept on faith that there is a sacred spark, a worthy spark in every person. This can sound mundane, but it's very radical, revolutionary even. Each person sacred, each person worthy. Accepting this on faith changes how we live. In this time when so many of us live in fear of a dehumanizing political regime, let us renew our pledge to live out those sacred and humane teachings that draw us toward compassion, love, and justice in ever-widening circles of care. And now we'll enjoy hymn number 149, Lift Every Voice and Sing.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring, ring with the harmonies of liberty.
First, I want to congratulate and thank all the people at Summit that can make this happen, to make us have the ability to come back together. And I don't think it was easy for the technological achievements to be made to make our Zoom meetings work and for us to be here safely together. Well, good morning. It's nice to be here. I miss this place, this community, this institution, this sanctuary for progressive thoughts and actions. Summit is my physical home of my faith. By the end of this talk, I hope you will understand why this is so important for me to have this space. Many of you may not know me very well since I've missed so many Sunday services in the past few years. So let me say a few things about me. Well, Mary Ellen and I joined Summit just about a year after it was formed, in about 1988, 89. And we raised 3 children through Summit's RE program. Our oldest became a UU minister and has been serving as the lead interfaith chaplain at Cedars-Sinai Hospital for many years. I've been an activist for most of my life. I worked on justice issues from high school and participated in protests through my college years. As a UU, I've served on social action committees. A board member for the California UU Legislative Ministry and been involved in many actions and justice issues like our Side with Love, holding our Side with Love banners at protests. Between protesting for immigrants' rights and actions at the Capitol for the Poor People's Campaign, it's been a very busy life making good trouble. I knew being a UU was right for me when one of the founding members of Summit, Dolores Moore, said something during a after-sermon discussion. She said, "UUs pray with our feet." In 2018, I started working with a handful of others, like-minded La Mesa residents, on police reform and the development of an effective Citizens Oversight Board. And I should note that in my former life as a Park Superintendent, I was a state park peace officer for 22 years. I even was an instructor for community policing at our academy. So it's not that I'm anti-police, but I believe that law enforcement in our community has a long ways to go, both in our state and country as well. Excuse me. But law enforcement has a long ways to go to do right. In many ways, we should be rethinking how the community can handle social conflicts other than always calling the police department as we do now. In 2020, after witnessing the city's response to the La Mesa riot, I decided to run for city council. I quickly dived into politics and got many of my friends and family and got a lot of help from Mary Ellen and pulled it off and I put it off by being an incumbent. That was very hard to do. And looking back at what happened, I was very lucky. Now I got to see politics and governance from the inside. And so far, I can tell you, it looks better on the outside. Once elected, it became a, oh, thank you. Once elected, it became a lesson on how power and privilege works. After a few months as a council member, I thought to myself, it's a wonder how all this works at all. It was really a wonder when I was astonished as to how things actually worked out quite well. To address the topic for today, let me describe a few ways people think, work, or justify what they do. These are stereotyped characteristics or cultural norms within these realities. And I'm only using this to illustrate something, so please don't make too big of a thing out of it. There's the world of science. Information, data, and what is right is backed up with proof. The scientific method may be used, numbers matter, time is relative to what is observed, and whether it is a millisecond or a million years, distance from a fraction of a millimeter to a light year is made to make sense. Belief and ideas may change, but only with information and facts. When I was young, this was the world that I felt comfortable in, and I used it to guide my life. Now, another way of thinking and whatever is what organizations and governments often function with, and that's the business and economic model. People in this world use the words like growth, profit, interest rates, and loss. Their time horizon is usually shorter. It is for the next quarterly report, a fiscal year, or maybe a 2 to 5 year outlook. Even a 10-year mortgage may be reworked in 5 to 10 years. I'm sorry, even a 30-year mortgage can be reworked quickly. What cannot be counted in this model as a cost becomes a thing we call externalities. The goal is a place for economic things to thrive or for someone to get rich. Thinking this way actually helped my family save for college fund for all 3 of my children and to buy toys. Then there's the person or organization guided by faith, a religion, a belief system, or just trying to be the better half of being a human being. Words like love, justice, rights, inclusion, diversity, principles all come to mind. This leads to volunteering, service, advocacy, activism, helping others, and to make a better world. This is where being a UU comes in, and learning our principles, hearing sermons, and working with others to do this work. This can help someone feel that they're making a difference in this world. Finally, there's the world of politics. In our way of governance, this is a reality for those who want to participate and get elected. The vocabulary is polls, caucus, endorsements, contributions, and party support. In short, building effective wedge issues. It's also about building effective wedge issues and charisma. Nowadays, facts or truth matters less. How to spin an issue, use media, rallies, and fundraising is what is important. The timeline is as long as the next election. If there's a vision for the next 10, 15 years, it only matters how you can show it during a campaign. People have short memories and often vote depending on what happened the last month. This is where my mind was when I had to get elected. There are, of course, other ways of thinking and seeing the world, such as being family-centered or having creativity and the arts, or nature and earth-centered thinking. And we function using 1, 2, or more of these ways of thinking from day to day. From my observations and experience, in our culture, our society, our system of governance uses these forms of thinking are continuously being inserted, pushed, developed in our institutions. Some may think the purpose of government is to just protect and promote economic success. Others may say government should work for social or economic issues. Using science, we should address problems like homelessness and climate crisis, and deal with the climate crisis. But those who are elected into policy-making positions know that political thinking is what rules them in so many ways. With its own processes and behaviors, political reality becomes the guiding principle. What a lawmaker brings up during a meeting or how they vote is overshadowed by political power and survival. Therefore, faith principles, or some other priority or way of thinking needs to be in governance. Now, let me pause here for a moment and say that I think most people in politics are well-meaning. They got into the field truly trying to do good. But politics is not about improving society, the earth, or saving lives. You need another thought process to get something done. Otherwise, politics will simply feed itself and ultimately have no outcome. So let me give you a quick example of something that happened recently. And actually, it was written about in Time magazine in the March 14th to 21st, 2022 issue. So it just came out a couple of months ago. And it has to do with regional transportation, our regional transportation plan, and a projection within the plan that soon our revenue for transportation systems will come from road use charges. The plan also bases some reduction in vehicle miles traveled and uses road use charges as a means to get there, as well as easing congestion. This will help meet our climate action goals and keep traffic flowing. Our current road use cost recovery system is the gas tax, which has not actually helped us recover much of the cost for road maintenance and road building. With the conversion to using electric cars, we know we need something else to recover the cost in the near future. Well, this issue was misrepresented by one political side, and together with some one-sided arguments made into a political wedge issue. Some clever mass media emails produced thousands of emails to elected officials before the vote on the regional transportation plan by our regional transportation planning agencies. And some of you may know the acronym SANDAG. Though this plan was years in the making and presented to both the community and lawmakers for many times, the leadership of the progressive political side flipped on this issue and really started to go against the use of road use charges. This caused a major problem for the plan. Without its approval, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars of state and federal funds would be in jeopardy. There was no time to change the document, so a move was done at the board immediately after ratifying the plan.
In short, what happened is a plan which is based on science and economics that would be better for our communities, the environment, and more equitable, got misused for political gain. Now it is somewhat in limbo. Political craftsmanship and political reality won the day. So politics will not save us. Some kind of overriding guide is needed in how we run our society. We elect people who we find to have the same North Star. We cannot afford for them to make detours every time there is a threat to their vote count. Those of us who believe in love, justice, equity, the environment, and a better future for all need to speak up. Be the voice of reason, the better half of what it means to be a human being. As a religious organization, you can do advocacy. There's no shortage of social actions that are needed. Organize. Pray with not only your feet, but with your hands, your fingers on keyboards. Use your cell phones. All of you can put the number of a legislative representative on your contact list, so you could speed dial them with whatever the message is that you want to give them. Hold up those banners for Side with Love. Do what you can to make good trouble. Thank you.
The promise of the Spirit, faith, hope, and love abide, and so every soul is blessed and made whole. The truth in our hearts is our guide. We are answering the call of love. Hands joined together. answering the call of love.
Well, we're coming to the end of our service. I invite you to stay afterwards for a time of community gathering. And I invite you to come back next week when Joe Adon, over here in our audience today, hey Joe. Joe will be taking the pulpit to talk about his journey toward appreciating beauty. We're moving into the month of May when the theme is nurturing beauty, I believe. So, and again, if you want to go outside and have coffee, please leave quietly before we continue our community gathering. So, as we extinguish our chalice, I will share with you the words of Dorothy Day. People say, "What is the sense of our small effort?" They cannot see that we must lay one brick at a time, take one step at a time. A pebble cast into a pond causes ripples that spread in all directions. Each one of our thoughts, words, and deeds is like that. No one has a right to sit down and feel hopeless. There's too much work to do. And now, if you feel comfortable and would like to stand up and join hands, we can do our closing circle song. Again, we can sing with our masks on.